Hey guys, we're going to do 4.4 today in this video. This is interpreting intercepts and slope. So 4.3 is word problems, writing expressions, and we're kind of doing about the same thing today. Except we're going to be taking pieces of the equations that you made yesterday and being able to reverse it and say what those pieces mean. So we're going to be talking about intercepts and slopes in a real world context. Let's start with y equals mx plus b. Each variable represents something in real world. So when we look at an equation, it just feels like math. But we use math in everyday life. So y is the total. Everything equals y. When I go to the grocery store and I rack up all my groceries, it all equals the total. M is the slope. Other words that we've used are rate, or the multiplied value, whatever's being multiplied multiple times, or added multiple times. X is the input, and B is the y-intercept, but it also has a couple other names. Notice we're going to be talking about slope and intercept today a lot, so those are the ones that are going to be, more valuable, more words involved. B is the y-intercept. It is also, we sometimes call it like the starting value, or it's your value that's only added in once. Right? When I have just plus b, that means just plus 1b. When I have m times x, I'm saying x m times. So that happens more than once, whereas the y-intercept only gets added in once. So on your homework, you're going to be given a spiel like this, and you're going to be asked one of these questions. Like not every section of Delta Math, every question in Delta Math is going to ask all 6 of these questions. It's always going to ask like just one. I just wanted to only use one spiel so you could see the difference all in the same context. So Jose is going to the amusement park where he has to pay a set price for admission and another price for tickets to go on each of the rides. The total amount of money Jose will spend is given by the equation y equals 14 plus 3x, where y represents the total amount of money and x represents the number of rides. What could the number 3 represent in the equation? So that is one of my questions. But we're going to go through all of them. So when I read this, I go, okay, we have a set price for admission. You only have to be admitted into an amusement park once. So I'm thinking that's my y-intercept. Or my b. But I have to pay a price to go on each ride. So there's one of my key rate words already, too. But I don't know about you, but when I go to Disneyland, I like to go on more than just one ride. So that's, to me, is the rate. That's what I'm going to rack up the price of tickets multiple times. Like I'm going to buy a ticket for California Screamin', and then I'm going to buy a ticket for Tower of Terror or whatever. So my initial amount, that is code for your start. Remember, we said our y-intercept is our starting value. Initial is another word, so this is asking for our b. And you would just say, well, it's my value only added in once, so it's 14. What number is the slope, and what does that mean? AKA, slope is 3 because it's the other number, and what does it represent? Well, we talked about how we're going on each ride. So 3 is going to be the price per ride. Now, my favorite 2 questions that you can be asked are these 2, because we always get a little stuck on them because we don't usually think about what x and y are, but they literally tell you in the problem. Y represents this, and x represents this. So that's what you would look for. You would say x represents the number of rides, and y represents the total money spent. So those ones are nice. When you get those, just be happy because they are so quick. What is the meaning of the y value when x equals 1? Well, x represents the number of rides. So if x is 1, then that means I went on 1 ride. And y is the total amount of money spent overall. So if I went on 1 ride, y is the total money spent if I went on 1 ride. And it's not going to say it exactly like that, right? That's me saying what I said verbatim, writing what I said verbatim. But Delta Math will have something like that. It'll say the total money spent if Jose goes on 1 ride, something like that. And then you're just going to do the exact same thing, but kind of, switch them. You're going to talk about the meaning of the x value if y is 26. So if y is 26, remember y is the total amount of money. So x would be, x represents the number of rides. When my total bill is $26. Okay, because x is the number of rides, so x represents the number of rides when I've spent a total of $26 overall. That includes admission and the amount, all the rides I went on to. So those are the 6 types of questions you can get asked. Let's take a look at the back. You can also be asked with a graph. So instead of being given a full spiel with an equation, you're given just a graph. But we can find the exact same stuff, right? We have a y-intercept still. Let's see, right there. It's not, plus b anymore in an equation, but it is still there on the graph. I also can now talk about my x-intercept because I can see it on the graph. And then I've got my slope. It's never going to ask you to calculate the slope. If it did, then we could totally find it, but I don't think it asks. These are the types of questions it can ask you from a graph. What does the y-intercept on the graph represent? Well, y-intercept is always the start. In this problem, I'm talking about an elevator going down from the top floor of a skyscraper. The graph is height over time. So height is my y-axis, time is my x-axis. The y-intercept is when x equals 0. So I'm still on the top floor of the skyscraper. That's what that means. So x is seconds. So if x is 0, that's 0 seconds. So I would say 0 seconds. I'm at 1,400 feet in the air still. Now the x-intercept means the same thing, almost. Let's see, I would go, that's about 130. We're gonna say, or you can pretend that's right in the middle. That's 130. That's when y equals 0. So now I'm at 0 feet, right? I am on the floor. I'm no longer on the top floor of the building. I am on the ground floor of the building. no longer in the air at all. But it has been 130 seconds. What is the meaning of the point 40, 980? So in my mind, I go, okay, where even is that? Right there. 40 is 40 seconds. 980 is 980 feet. So I would find the multiple choice option that talked about 40 seconds and 900 feet. What's the meaning of the x value when y equals 280? So y equals 280 is right here. And sometimes it'll give you, the full point, and sometimes it won't. And that's okay. We're going to treat it the same way we treated the other side of the page. The x value is the seconds that have passed. You can say that in any way you want, but that's what came to my mind. The amount of seconds that have gone by, right? We don't know exactly how many, but it's about 100. Seconds that have passed by the time we've hit 280 feet. And then the last thing, this one's always the trickiest to wrap our minds around, but there's a key word. Slope is a rate. So it's not going to be a single moment in time at 40 seconds or a single height, 280 feet. It is the constant change, the slantness of the line. That is what slope is. So the word you're always going to look for is change. Every time you see the word change, that means slope. So if it asks for slope, you are looking for the option that says change. And then we always write the slope as rise over run. That comes in really handy because when you go to your homework, it's going to give you possibly two options, and both of them will say change, and you have to say the y value, what the y represents, before you say what the x value represents. So it would be the change in height compared to time. Now, if it said change in time compared to height, that would be wrong because we don't say slope as run over rise. We say it as rise over run. So those are the little tricks for how to represent slope. Let's try one more problem and then I'm done. Suave's math teacher finds that there's roughly a linear relationship between the amount of time students spend on their homework and their weekly quiz scores. This relationship can be represented by the graph below. What is the meaning of the x value when y equals 90? So first we have to ask ourselves, well, what are the x values? X-axis, I see x-axis represents time spent on homework per week. So and y is the expected quiz score. So if my quiz score is 90, I've probably spent 4 hours on my homework. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look at my first option and say, okay, the number of hours a student should spend on their homework to expect a score of 4. Nope. The score was the 90. The 4 was the hours. So I'm thinking no. The student's expected quiz score if they spend 90 hours on their homework. Again, we're swapping them. That's not what we wanted. The student's expected quiz score if they spend 4 hours on their homework. That is correct, but that's not the information we were given. Okay? We just looked at the graph and we said, it's close to 4. But we were talking about getting a 90 on the quiz. We know that y equals 90. That's what we were told. So that's what you're going to have. Okay? You were asked what the x value represents, and you have to state what the x values represent. The number of hours. So the correct answer would be the last option. Try your homework out and email me if you have any questions. Thank you.